Hello. Ready for a hot time in Nagoya? Me too. Sotro!
Roll the salt, get in the ring. Welcome to the Dohyo.
Hello and welcome to the Dohyo here on Mr. JWags channel. We are here in the corner with the radiator, ready with our bolder predictions for what looks like an amazing July basho. And yes, you may have noticed I have gotten a bit of a summer trim, and I am not wearing my trademark black t-shirt and flannel, as it is currently 94 degrees in New York City, which I believe the technical weather term is balls hot. So I am doing fine. We're dressing down a little cooler, and I have the USB fan in the corner should you hear something that sounds like a fan. It is. And hello to all the new people. Since our last video, we have passed 4,000 subscribers. Woo! So if you've been here from the beginning, thank you for sticking around. And if you're new, we are going to have so much fun. I was just interviewed by the New to Sumo podcast. We talked for about 45 minutes for any number of awesome sumo topics, so do check that out. Do check out the channel. They are two brothers who love talking sumo, and I'm sure they'd love to hear from y'all in the comments. And as always, a giant, huge thank you to the patrons. You really help me do the things that we do here. And if any of you are interested, check it out. The more support we get, the more episodes of the Dohyo there will be. Alright, let's get started with these bold predictions. I think this is going to be a very exciting basho, but I also think it's going to be very, very tough for our Sanyaku and Joy. First bold prediction, our Soul Ozeki, Koto Zakada, will go Kadaban. Yeah. As we have mentioned, he has not looked too good since winning his first and, well, only Yusho this past November. This year he's gotten a Makekoshi, an 8-7, and an 8-7, and now we are hearing that there is a neck injury. Ew. And those of us who are Takakeisho fans know that that is a really, really bad injury to have in sumo. Frankly, I'm not expecting him to go all 15 days, and even if he does, I'm not expecting a winning record. So hopefully I'm wrong about this one, but I'm not that optimistic about Kotozakata in July. Bolder prediction, Sekiwake Kirishima will get a winning record, but will not be promoted to Ozeki. And as we all know about Kirishima, former Ozeki, former two-time champion, lost the rank about a year and a half ago and hasn't quite been able to get that consistency in his sumo to get back up to Ozeki. I think he is going to continue being consistently good enough to stay up at Sekiwake, but I do not think he's going to get the 12 to 13 wins I think would be necessary to give him Ozeki consideration at this point. Now, I'd love to be wrong about this, but frankly, I don't think there are going to be a lot of easy wins in the Sanyaku and Joy this tournament. So, I'm a little less optimistic than I could be about Kirishima, but I'm still expecting 8 or 9 wins. Our next bold prediction, our Juryo Yusho champion will get fewer than 13 wins. Our past two Juryo champions have been the same wrestler, the young hotness known as Kusano, who has finally worked his way through Juryo into the bottom of the Maegashira ranks. We will talk about him in a second. But he won his last two Juryo championships with 14 and 13 wins. I don't think it's going to happen this time. Juryo is looking kind of old? Now, this feels a little counterintuitive because Juryo is the last step before Makuuchi, so you'd expect a lot of young hotness to be sort of amassing there before they work their way up to the top rank. But it feels like the top ranks of Juryo and the bottom ranks of Maegashira have sort of flipped, and most of the young hotness has already worked its way up into the top ranks. I mean, if you look at the Banzake in Juryo, only about 18% of the wrestlers were born in the year 2000 or after, and that number jumps up to about 24% for the Makuuchi division. Right now, Juryo seems to be a depository for former Makuuchi wrestlers. In fact, 16 of the 28 Juryo wrestlers have spent time in Makuuchi, but are no longer there. And when I look at those former Makuuchi wrestlers in Juryo, there aren't really any of them who I'm like, yeah, that guy's going to make a comeback, he's going to come back full strength, make it up to like the Sanyaku or the Joy. In fact, there aren't a whole heck a lot of these wrestlers I see even making it back up to Makuuchi for more than a tournament at a time. But that being said, my bolder prediction is that Makushita 1 West Asanoyama will win his second Makushita Yusho. Now, as I said, there's a lot of young hotness in Makuuchi right now, but there's also a lot of people fighting at their top rank right now in the top 15 ranks of Makushita. Check it out, 12 of the top 30 Makushita wrestlers are fighting at their top rank, and there are a number of young hotnesses up at the top who aren't even fighting at their top rank, but are young enough to still make deep charges, I believe, into Juryo and Makauchi. Wrestlers like Satoru Fuji, Wakanosho, and Mudoho, all under the age of 24. But despite that, I'm gonna gold with the grizzled old veteran. I think Asanoyama does have what it takes to make it back up into Makauchi. I'm not talking Yusho, I'm not talking Ozeki, but I do think a healthy Asanoyama is a Makauchi level wrestler, and I think he's gonna prove it this July. Now it's time for 3 Up, 3 Down, a recurring segment where we look at the Banzuke and find 3 wrestlers I believe are overranked and are not going to do well in this tournament, and 3 wrestlers who are underranked and should have an excellent tournament. My first down, and this is gonna hurt a little bit, it's Takayasu. Now, longtime viewers may remember that Takayasu was also in the down rankings from the last Boulder predictions, and I was correct. He got a 6 and 9, but shockingly did not lose the Komusubi rank. He is the only Komusubi in modern sumo history to get a 6 and 9 at Komusubi and hold the rank. So while I think Takayasu is still very talented, and I think he still might be able to squeak out that Yusho, I don't think it's going to come from him being in the Sanyaku and the Joy. If it happens, I think it's going to come from low Maegashira, and he just gets a bolt of health, and a little bit of help from facing lower Maegashira in the first week. But facing like 15 days of the best wrestlers in sumo, I'm not optimistic he's going to do better than he did last time at Komusubi, which was 6 and 9. Next down, the other Komusubi, Oshoma. Now, this is Oshoma's highest ever rank, but the last time he was up in the Joy or Sanyaku, in fact, the only time, he went 4 and 11. Now, his highest ranked Kachikoshi ever was in the last tournament at Maegashira 6, but he's 28. I don't really see him having like another step of growth at this point in his sumo. I am expecting a losing record out of Oshoma. Keep in mind, he got jumped up from Maegashira 6 because there was a lot of losing going on between Maegashira 6 and the Komusubi rank. We had 0 winning records from Wakataka Kage at Komusubi all the way down to Oshoma at Maegashira 6. So both Takayasu and Oshoma are Komusubi thanks to, I think, more Banzuke luck than the excellence of their sumo. And as I said before, this is going to be a brutal tournament for the wrestlers up in the Sanyaku and the Joy. There are a bunch of young hotnesses who are we going to talk about pushing their way up, trying to get that Komusubi slot. And we have 2 young Yokozuna still trying to prove themselves, and we have 3 Sekiwake on Ozeki run. So yeah, wins are going to be hard to come by this time. And my final down, Maegashira 3 West, Kinbozan. Now, I do enjoy Kinbozan, and I think sumo's better when we have some huge, like, pusher thrusters in the mix. I just don't see him as being a Sanyaku or Joy level wrestler. His highest ranked Kachikoshi ever was 8 wins at Maegashira 7 West, and now he's fighting at his highest rank of Maegashira 3 West. So yeah, he's going to be facing the best all 15 days, unless he does really bad in the first week. So yeah, I'm not expecting a winning record from Kinbozan. And now it's time for the 3 Up. First up, Maegashira 14 East, Kusano. As we just mentioned, he has won the last 2 Juryo Yusho with a combined 27 wins. So while this is his first time up in Makauchi, I would have a very, very hard time believing that the top of Juryo is that much worse than the bottom of Makauchi right now, to the point where someone getting 14, 13 wins regularly in Juryo wouldn't get at least 10 wins at the bottom of the Maegashira ranks. So yes, I'm expecting at least 10 wins out of Kusano, and possibly a Dark Horse Yusho run in week 2. Second up, Maegashira 6 Takeru Fuji. Takeru Fuji has had a number of appearances on both sides of 3 Up, 3 Down, and recently he had his first foray up into the Joy Sanyaku region, and didn't do that well. In fact, he got his first losing record, got a 6 and 9, but now he has dropped himself back down to Maegashira 6, and as we have seen recently, he tends to do okay there. Last time he was at Maegashira 6, he got a 9 and 6, and I don't expect him to necessarily do worse this time, but I do expect the Joy line to be sort of around Maegashira 4-5, so unless Takeru Fuji is having an amazing first week, I don't think he's going to be facing a lot of top-level wrestlers in the second week. And that being said, this is his second time at Maegashira 6, and he has now faced a few of the top rankers now more than once. So hopefully he's starting to develop a bit of a book on them and will be improving from here on out. I still think we have a Sanyaku run in Takeru Fuji, if not by the end of this year, but early next year. And my final up, Maegashira 1 East, Aonishiki. Now, I personally thought Aonishiki had a great case for Komasubi, but the Banzage Committee did not fully agree with me. Now, I do understand from the Banzage Committee's point of view why you wouldn't want to put like a borderline case up on the Sanyaku to make their Sanyaku debut. And from what I understand, it does change sort of your sumo life a great deal. It makes you eligible for elder stock. I believe it changes your payouts for retirement. So I'm imagining they don't want to promote someone up into their Sanyaku debut on a borderline case. With that being said, Aonishiki has a heck of a resume built up after only 11 basho. He's going into his 12th basho, not even 2 years in sumo yet. He's never had a losing record. He's never gotten below double-digit wins up in the top 2 divisions. I'm not expecting like an Onosato level thunderbolt, but if we hadn't had an Onosato this year, I'm pretty sure all we would be talking about right now is Aonishiki and how high his ceiling is. So yes, it's his first time up in the Sanyaku and the Joy. I feel like he's going to hit a bit of a ceiling here, but I don't think he's going to get a losing record. So I am expecting 8 to 9 wins and Sanyaku promotion after this tournament for Aonishiki. And now it's time for Which Way We Going? A recurring segment where we look at several wrestlers whose careers seem to be at a crossroads and we discuss which way they're going. Now, we talked a lot about wrestlers up at their highest rank in Makushita. Well, we've got quite a few up in Makuuchi as well. We have 11 wrestlers fighting at their current highest rank in Makuuchi, and 6 of them are up in the Joy and Sanyaku. First up, Sekiwake Daisho. Now, we have talked a lot about Daisho in the past few episodes, especially our last Who Will Be Our Next Ozeki episode. If you haven't checked it out, it's a good one. Now, historically, Daisho is not very dominant in July. In fact, since he's made his Sanyaku debut in 2020, he's only broken 10 wins once. And that was in July of 2020, and if we look back at that, he had 2 Fusen wins in that tournament. And traditionally, pusher thrusters have not done well in Nagoya, because frankly, in July, it is the hottest basho, and being a pusher thruster does require a bit of friction on your opponent's body. So there is a hypothesis that pusher thrusters do very poorly in the summer because their opponents are just slicker. But this summer, we have a brand new arena in Nagoya, and from everything I've heard, the AC works and it is spectacular. So I'm very interested to see how this affects the pusher thrusters in this tournament. Now, as for Daisho, I do think he's going to get a winning record. Frankly, I mean, the guy is practically a metronome. Very, very consistent. But it would take an excellent tournament, probably 12 or 13 wins for him to get Ozeki consideration. And frankly, I don't see that kind of tournament out of Daisho. Excellent air conditioning notwithstanding. Next up, Maegashira 2 East Oho. Yeah, so we've talked a lot about Oho recently. I do believe he is an excellent wrestler. I believe he belongs in the top 15 of Grand Sumo. The question is, does he have any more jumps left in his sumo? If we look back through his career, he tends to be a guy who like sort of hangs out in the mediocre level and then has a jump. We're a bit overdue for that, but he is at the very, very tops of the ranks now, so if he does make a jump into sumo, it will have to be against the very, very best in the world. Now, the Joy and the Sanyaku look very, very tough this tournament, but I also don't think Oho is going to have another 7-match losing streak this tournament. So, this could be a breakout. He is due for one, but it's gonna be real hard. Next up, Maegashira's 3 and 4 Onokatsu and Hakuoho. They are both young hotness and they are both up in the Joy for the very first time in their career. Now, Onokatsu is 25, but only has 5 basho up in the Makuuchi ranks, and he's coming off of 2 consecutive 10 and 5s. Now, being 25, I don't think he has a lot of like jumpitude left in his sumo, but I do think there is room for him to grow, especially because he hasn't had a lot of experience facing the top rankers. Now, Hakuoho is still just 21. He'll be 22 before the September basho, so he's right at the end of his 21 year. But he does have a much longer injury history than Onokatsu. So, like I said before, it ain't the years, it's the miles. If Hakuoho is fully healthy, or at least even 90% healthy, I could see him getting a Kachikoshi here, but it's going to take everything he's got. And last up, Maegashira 14 West Fujinokawa. Some of you may ask, who is Fujinokawa? Well, he is the former Waka Ikari. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the new Fujinokawa, he is very talented and very young. He's only 20 years old and is right now our youngest Sekitori. Now, it looks like he has a lot of momentum coming out of Juryo. Like I said, very, very young. He got a 12-3 in the last tournament at Juryo 5, which is almost up to what our Juryo champion Kusano had. But the problem I have with Fujinokawa is I'm afraid he may be sort of held to the ceiling of what I like to call the short kings. Excellent fundamental wrestlers who have great sumo heart, but are going to hit a ceiling just because they have a smaller than average body for a sumo wrestler. Now, we've mentioned this before. There does seem to be a level that once you get there, it doesn't seem to be as much of an issue. I like to call it like the Wakataka Kage line. If you're about that size, you're big enough where even the larger guys can't just dismiss you with one strong push. And that line tends to lie around like about 5'11", 6 foot, and about 125 to 130 kilos. Currently, Fujinokawa is sort of below both of those rankings right now. So, hypothetically, he could fill out, but just judging from what I have seen of his sumo, I don't see him really getting up there to like the 130 line and hanging out there for a while. So, I'm interested to see how he reacts to the low Maegashira ranks, but right now, I'd put his ceiling around mid Maegashira, unless he can bulk up or unless he shows a Chiyonafuji level of technique, which I am doubtful of. Next bold prediction, Sekiwake Wakataka Kage will get 11 plus wins. He will be in contention on the final weekend, and he will be promoted to Ozeki. Yeah. I will admit, this is a very optimistic prediction for Wakataka Kage, but he really, really impressed me in the last tournament, and frankly, I think he's about as good as he has ever been on the Dohyo. And while I think there is a lot of young talent up in the Joy, I'm not sure how they're going to react to facing a wrestler of the quality of the current Sekiwake and above that we have. So not only do I think that Wakataka Kage is wrestling the best of our three Sekiwake at this point, but he's also 2 wins ahead of them in his Ozeki push. He has 21, where the other two only have 19 over their last 2 tournaments. So those 2 facts, plus a little bit of optimism and hope, get me to Ozeki Wakataka Kage in September. My bolder prediction, Onosato will not win the Yusho. First of all, it is very, very rare to win 3 Yusho in a row. And if we look back in the modern sumo era, post-1958, the wrestlers who have done it, I'd say pretty much are the best wrestlers we've had since 1958. Their names like Taiho, Kitano Umi, Chiyonafuji, Akebono, Takano Hana, Asashoryu, Hakuoho. That's the standard we're talking about when we're talking about winning 3 Yusho in a row. So if Onosato can pull this off, we'd be talking about him in the same breath as people who we consider top 10 Yokozuna. And it's also very rare to win your first tournament at the rank of Yokozuna. It's only happened 9 times in sumo history, and since the Futahagaro scandal in 1987, it's only happened 3 times. And that's Takano Hana, Kisano Sato, and Teruno Fuji. And in those 3 cases, there seems to be a bit of extenuating circumstances. Takano Hana, as we have famously mentioned before, it took him 7 Yusho to get his Yokozuna rope. So at that point, I think he was just on full-on FU mode once he finally won 2 in a row at Ozeki to make Yokozuna, I think, his first time, and he's like, not only am I going to walk through this door, I'm going to kick it down. As longtime sumo fans recall, Kisano Sato was promoted to Yokozuna with only 1 Yusho, and at that time he was very, very motivated to win his first Yusho at Yokozuna to prove that he was worthy of the Yokozuna standard, winning 2 in a row. In fact, he was so motivated he ended up tearing his shoulder and coming back to win the championship. Very stirring basho if you ever get a chance to watch it. Rocky vibes the whole time. And as for Teruno Fuji's Yokozuna debut, he frankly was not facing that tough of a field. Teruno Fuji won that tournament with a 13-2. The 2 wrestlers tied for the Jun Yusho were both Maegashira, who went 11-4, 2 full wins behind Teruno Fuji, and the Sanyaku member with the most wins other than Teruno Fuji was Mitakeyumi with a 9-6. I'm expecting this Sanyaku Enjoy to be much, much tougher than it was when Teruno Fuji had his first tournament at Yokozuna. So, history tells me it is very, very unlikely that Onosato will win his first Yusho at the rank, but if he does, I think it's fair to say that we are looking at the beginning of something very, very special from this young man, and we can start setting his ceiling at possibly among the greatest Yokozuna of all time. Alright, here we come, the Yusho pick. Alright, my bold prediction is that Hoshoryu is going to give up a Kinboshi, but will beat Onosato. I mean, why mess with history? This is the safest bet in all of sumo. Hoshoryu has never once gotten through an entire tournament without losing to a Maegashira. So this time I don't think there are going to be two. This time I think there will be one Kinboshi. And as we all know, Hoshoryu has only lost once to Onosato in the ring, and I expect him to continue his dominance in July. My bolder prediction? Hoshoryu wins his third Yusho with a 13-2. Yeah, this is going to be an exciting one. I do expect Onosato to do fairly well, 10 plus wins. I expect Wakataka Kage to get 11 plus wins and be in contention on the final weekend, and I'm expecting at least one Maegashira dark horse, my current pick, Kusano. But although there have been reports of a toe injury, he seems to be back practicing full strength. In fact, he even defeated Onosato 3 times in a recent practice. And I know, no, practice is practice. But things seem to be looking very good for Hoshoryu right now, and as we remember, he did win his first Yusho in Nagoya. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Dohyo. Please like, subscribe, and comment. I promise interacting with YouTube and pushing the buttons really does help. And have I mentioned that it's absolutely free? And for those of you with a little bit of change rolling around in your pockets, please consider becoming a patron. As I have said before, it absolutely helps the channel. And the more support we get, the more episodes of the Dohyo there will be. Stay tuned to the channel. You are not going to want to miss any of our July coverage. We will be back with our quick strikes and, of course, our end of Basho wrap-up. The Terra no Fuji episode and all of those graphs are going to be coming up very soon, I promise. And I've got a few surprises up my sleeve that you're not going to want to miss. So everyone, first of all, stay cool. But stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and I will see you next time on the Dohyo.